Madam Commissioner, thank you for receiving us today. My first question would be about yesterday you presented your annual report of the Human Rights Commissioner of the Council of Europe. Could you tell us a little bit what are the most important findings of it, and whether if the previous reports gave any concrete results in the human rights situation of the countries that you cover?
Yes, it was a quite important event for me and my team. It was my first annual report as Commissioner, and of course, apart from the written report that is available on our website, it was also an opportunity for me to assess situation in Council of Europe member states, and also based on my assessment after country visits and the work I did in the previous year. And as I said yesterday, I will repeat it here, it was quite a complex but also a mixed feeling of everything I saw and everything I had to do in this past year. We are all aware of the fact that we live in a very dangerous time. We are somehow, I would say, at the crossroads when we talk about human rights. Too many countries are moving away from their obligations, from their commitments, and I'm here talking about well-established democracies, but also countries that are struggling to become democratic. We see cases of hate speech and hate crime happening in the countries. We see a lot of a real decline when it comes to women's rights, even though we have to recognize that the achievements in the past decades were really great. This is something that needs to be recognized. At the same time, it is also unavoidable to see that we are moving away from all these commitments and all resolutions and all these issues that actually made Europe a better place in the world, and also a place where something in relation to human rights was always extremely important. That's why I think the importance of Council of Europe as an institution is becoming even more relevant nowadays when we are facing so many challenges. Not to mention migration, the way we deal with these old problems, but still I would say even embarrassingly that this is still on the agenda: anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, the way we treat migrants, LGBTI community. So whatever you touch, it seems so that we are really not moving away from this old prejudice and conspiracy theories that are really affecting our societies. And then my role as a commissioner comes in place, and this is something that I think, and I take this with great honor, but also with a great responsibility, because you deal with people's lives. And people's lives are affected in our region, in our Council of Europe family, as we like to say. But we also, I think, need to be more vocal and more direct when we defend human rights. And that was my message yesterday to the Parliament, to the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe after 1 year. And I also spoke about something that I find extremely dangerous for our continent, but beyond as well, which is nationalism. As a phenomenon that is still present in our societies, and I do not think we are doing enough, not to mention the governments that have responsibilities. On the contrary, too many leaders are using rhetorics and engaging in discourse that is toxic, irresponsible, and it's targeting vulnerable groups, which is something that I will continue raising for the next period and working on these issues together with the civil society.
You just spoke about migration. We see that the Visegrad Group, constituted by Poland, Hungary, Slovakia and the Czech Republic, are advocating a restrictive migration policy. And on the other hand, we have a stormy Brexit, which is translating the British wish to restrict the migration flows on its territory by withdrawing from the Schengen area. So what is exactly your position vis-à-vis this situation and these warning factors, in fact?
When it comes to Visegrad Group, I think it's important to say that the way they see migration is not just, it's the only problem. I think there are more countries moving in this very worrying direction. in a way, I think that the response to migration is something that was so wrong. And the way it was dealt with by the states is actually proving now as a you can even say as a boomerang that is hitting us back, because we didn't deal with it on time and in a proper way. All this rhetoric that is used in order to push migrants away and not to really respect human rights is a signal to me that the states are not ready. It is almost philosophical question, why is this happening? And we can, discuss this, and we can look at the history and the way the states are responding now and the way states responded before. But what I see and what I recognize as quite astonishing is the fact that nowadays and in the past years, there is a very small number of people coming to Europe comparing to what happened, for example, 10 years ago. And still we have leaders talking about invasion of migrants, people are going to, come in huge numbers, and all these issues that are actually showing that the states are really not only in a position, they are not willing to accept people that are running away from the wars and from very difficult situations. But another issue that I find of extreme importance to mention here is the way states are talking about the work of NGOs helping migrants, but also trying to restrict their work. Also, when they have NGOs working in helping migrants that are drawing in the Mediterranean, but also in general, trying to help and to assist them. They are targeted with legislation that is not really human rights friendly at all. And all those are issues that are constantly on my agenda. We look at also asylum procedures, the situation in the camps. I visited Greece, I went to islands, and I went to see Camp Moria, but also Karatepe. I spoke to migrants, I spoke to those people, to families, in order to hear from them. And their faith is just, it's amazing what's happening, and the way they suffer, and somehow also the way that we are not responding in the right way. I do not think this is not manageable problem, but then the question remains, and I think I already mentioned this, that the response is so negative. It's also showing us that we are not mature as a society, and we did not learn on the mistakes, and everything that happened in history somehow was pushed away and not really used in order to make us more human and more responsive when we see people suffering. And of course we need to protect borders, and we need to make sure that citizens are saved. Nobody is saying that this should not be done, but the way it is handled at the moment, I think it's quite embarrassing for all of us Europeans.
You also spoke about the spread of hate speech, and my third question is related to Western Balkan, and especially Bosnia, where I come from. And you spoke about the fact that there is a spread of hate speech, glorification of war crimes and war heroes, and this is a bit a rhetoric and a logic which led to the war in the 90s. So how would you think that what exactly are the chances of discarding the two schools under one roof system in this respect?
I mean, schools under one roof, is an issue that can solve many problems. Segregated education is something that we are facing in too many countries, and in my part of the world, in the Western Balkans, particularly in my country, Bosnia and Herzegovina, is something that is already affecting society very negatively, not to mention young generations, not to mention young people that should be actually the strength of the country that went through a horrible war. When it comes to hate speech, I can say it's my personal view, but it is also my view as Commissioner for Human Rights. I do not think the leaders in the Western Balkans are mature enough in order to address these issues. They are irresponsible. They are still using this rhetoric of division and spreading hatred among people in order to stay in power. And that is clear not just to me, but to many interlocutors I talk to in different international organizations, but also when I talk to civil society in the Western Balkans. They see this as a tool that is constantly used even after the atrocities, even after genocide that happened on our territory. They still use this kind of rhetoric in order to divide society. I try to do as much as I can as Commissioner, but also as a person that comes from that part of the world, and to see how I can contribute to the well-being of the society. It is extremely difficult, but what gives me hope is really vibrant civil society, very courageous and outspoken human rights defenders and journalists in all regions that are trying to really break taboos and reach out to people from different countries in order to talk about truth, reconciliation, and all these important issues for the future of the society. And education plays extremely important role. This is an issue that my predecessors worked on when it comes to school under one roof, and I intend to engage even more on this, but this is something that I will do in a very near future.
You also went to Turkey on the from 15 to 19 October last year to establish a dialogue between the Council of Europe and the Turkish authorities and the civil society. You addressed a number of human rights issues, and since this visit, so it's like 1 year now, did you see an evolution on the human rights issue that you addressed there?
This was a contact mission that was agreed with the Turkish authorities, and it was a successful mission in a sense that I had opportunity to discuss issues of concern with the highest level of the authorities, but then also to have meetings in Istanbul and in Ankara with civil society. I remain hopeful that the situation will improve, but at the same time I'm also very realistic. I try to follow all the developments, and after my return I was not really to put it mildly, impressed at all with the developments afterwards, particularly in the case of Mr. Osman Kavala and the indictment that was presented to him and to public, which in a way I used to submit my third-party intervention before European Court of Human Rights, in order not to talk about his particular case, but also the dangers with this kind of approach, the danger civil society in Turkey is constantly facing. I do believe I will return to Turkey very soon, probably in June, for a country visit where I'll be able to address this, but also all other issues related to human rights and my mandate. What I think it's important to mention here that cooperation with Turkish authorities, no matter how much we disagree on these issues related to human rights, is something that I value very much, and it also gives me hope that we can achieve some good things. But the time will tell. What I know and what I am willing to do is to do absolutely everything in my power as Commissioner in order to change the current situation facing human rights defenders, but also many other parts of the society.
Mm-hmm. And do you think there are still internal remedies to be exhausted by the persons who wants to bring their case to the European Court of the Human Rights after the coup attempt in 2016?
This is the view of the European Court of Human Rights. and this is something that is also made public. Nevertheless, my mandate is independent from this. I move independently, and I have my interlocutors in Turkey among authorities, but also civil society, and I address these issues based on my own assessment, of course taking into account the case law of European Court of Human Rights, but also my decisions to put forward some third-party interventions before the court. But at the same time, I think we also need to continue engaging as much as we can and see what are all the possibilities in Turkey, but also using European Court, no matter how much it is difficult sometimes, for certain individuals that I do understand are not really satisfied with this position of the court, but at the same time I think it is important to continue this cooperation and to continue bringing cases before the court.
And you also asked for measures to be taken to Russia and Ukraine authorities concerning the numerous prisoners and detainees held in respective countries since 2014. And what is exactly your position, or are you optimistic or pessimistic on the state of play of this negotiations?
I mean, in general, I'm an optimistic person. Otherwise, I don't think I would be able to do this job. But what I think it's important to stress in relation to prisoners in Russia and also in Ukraine, I asked to engage even more, and I also reflected in the letters to two foreign ministers the need to exchange or to release people based on humanitarian grounds. Many, without going into too many details about the reasoning behind their arrest or detention, what I think is important that many of those people are in a very bad health shape. I mean, there are many of them on hunger strikes, or they finalize their hunger strikes. So all this is affecting any engagement or involvement coming from our side. At the moment, two ombudspersons from both countries are dealing with the issues of prisoners, and I'm of course following this. I just returned from Russian Federation last week, and I raised the cases of prisoners, particularly the ones that are facing huge health issues, and I do hope to see some resolution on those particular cases very soon. And to see if we can re-engage and reconnect in order to bring some light when it comes to human rights in Russian Federation. When it comes to Ukraine, I'm waiting to see the elections finalized in order to engage with the authorities there. But nevertheless, I'm following all the developments, and I do hope for some results and resolutions for people that are detained and imprisoned for a very long period of time.
And concerning the Catalan issue, my last question is about the two well-known civil society leaders, the president of the Catalan parliament, Carme Forcadell, as well as 5 Catalan deputies who have been placed in preventive jail for more than 1 year. And yourself, you urged the Spanish Congress and the Senate to ensure that the law of the citizen's safety is really upholding the rights to freedom of expression, freedom of peaceful assembly. And do you think that in this case the Spanish authorities endangered the rights for manifestation, expression and opinion, but also considering the fact that the Declaration of Independence may be considered as unconstitutional?
I still did not engage in this particular issue of Catalan issue since I joined the office, but this is something that I plan to do. Particularly important is to stress that I'm very closely following the trial in order to see the results of this trial. When it comes to the law, I did engage, and I also sent a letter to the parliament, and I also had extensive talks with the Justice Minister of Spain on this, and there were some very positive moves. There were moves by the government to really change all the provisions of the law that were affecting public, the assembly, but also safety of people protesting. So we were seeing a very positive outcome of these talks and engagement. Unfortunately, the elections happened, and this is something that we are now waiting to see. So the law is at the moment nowhere, it's stagnating, and it remains to be seen if the new government is going to really continue and at the end adopt a law that will be considered human rights friendly law when it comes to these issues. On the trial, at this stage, I cannot say anything. My predecessors worked a lot. Nils Mužnieks did a report and also a statement on the riots, which is something that I'm aware of. And I do hope to be able to engage with Spanish authorities on this, but also on many other issues in a very near future.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for this insightful exchange, and thank you for receiving us today.